concept in today's video derives from a commonly used term while fishing, dragnet. However, in the world of law enforcement and investigative tactics, a dragnet is an increase in police presence, stopping and conducting a brief investigation with each person in the designated vicinity hoping to find a lead. Many people believe this leads to a race-driven bias, and not only that, but unconstitutional. In today's video, we will be diving into the desperate actions of the NYPD in order to find and apprehend their perpetrator. In the evening of August 2nd, 2016, the busy streets of Queens, New York, 30-year-old Karina Vetrano would go for her daily jog at Spring Creek Park at approximately 5 p.m., usually accompanied by her father, Philip Vetrano, a retired firefighter and first responder on 9/11. Philip was suffering from excruciating back pain at the time and wasn't able to join his daughter on their daily routine. Philip warned Karina about the dangers of going alone, but Karina insisted that she would be okay. Karina would then soon go for her jog, but hours would pass and no signs of Karina's return. Philip began to get worried, waiting yet another hour and heading out to look for his daughter in the park. Philip would relay the situation to police officers, claiming that it's not like his daughter to return late and not pick up her phone. That's when police would eventually issue a search team to look for the missing woman. Philip would detail the specific path him and his daughter jogged every day, and police began their search. But shortly after, Philip would be the one to make a startling discovery. Philip would find his daughter deceased a few feet off of the path with her belongings tossed in a brush, and signs of sexual assault seemed present. The very next day, on August 3rd, medical examiners would perform an autopsy on the body. They would determine that Karina had succumbed to death by strangulation. Karina also had blunt force trauma to her face, head, multiple abrasions, and contusions. Not only that, unknown DNA was found on her back, phone, and underneath her nails, which indicated a struggle occurred and Karina was fighting back. Police would then run a search of the DNA found, but results would return inconclusive, as the DNA did not match anyone in the national nor state DNA database. The Vetrano's family would then open a GoFundMe, giving the reward to anyone who comes forward with information that leads to the arrest of Karina's killer. Within a day, they were able to raise $77,000 and eventually much more. On August 31st, 2016, police would release a sketch of a possible suspect or person of interest based off the memory of a utility worker who claimed he saw a man nearby the park. Police would emphasize that they merely wanted to talk to the suspect, but no leads would arise from this information. In December of 2016, police would request the aid of the FBI, where locals begged for the use of a controversial technique called familiar searching. Familiar DNA searching is a technique which identifies potential relatives of the acquired DNA. This technique has since been regulated and discontinued in the state of New York, as it has raised privacy issues, and due to the overwhelming abundance of stop and frisks, it contains an overrepresentation of people of color. So police never continued with familiar searching. Police would eventually release a detailed profile of Vetrano's killer, stating the person who committed this assault is more likely familiar with the park and was likely a familiar face to others who use the park on a regular basis. He likely stopped visiting the park abruptly and believes he may have moved to another area of the borough. In hindsight, it's extremely important to note, in order to understand this case in its full entirety, that an anonymous 3-page letter was received in court from a person who claimed to be a police officer in the investigation. The person stated that police had a lead on 2 jacked up white guys who are from Howard Beach as the main suspects in Karina's murder. But after DNA phenotyping tests showed that the material collected from the crime scene was from that of an African American male. Police would then drop their current lead and shift their attention elsewhere. DNA phenotyping is the creation and prediction of the physical appearance of an organism depending on the genetic information collected. Though phenotyping helps police when there is no possible leads, the procedure has a 70% accuracy rate and cannot identify specific individuals. Not only is DNA phenotyping a controversial topic in the world of forensic science, but also in the ethical principles of society, as steps must be taken to minimize the risk of violation of privacy and discrimination. By February 2nd, 2017, police would eventually conduct a racially driven dragnet, stopping and swabbing over 360 African Americans from the borough of Brooklyn and Queens, which many believe to have been illegal and unconstitutional. Some may speculate that the desperate attempt to find the matching DNA was perpetuated by the reward money, as an off-duty officer was found stalking an African-American male named Chanel Lewis, who he deemed to look suspicious and out of place. It's important to note, in order to disclose all the facts of this case, that Chanel Lewis had special needs and has been described during trial as an intellectually disabled young man. The off-duty officer eventually called police to retrieve his information, and the next few days would eventually show up at his residence in East New York, Brooklyn. Unknowingly a direct suspect of Karina's murder, Chanel agreed to have his DNA tested. The mother of Chanel believes that police instructed him on what to say, but this information has never been proven. 2 days later, his DNA would match the profile from the evidence found at the crime scene, as medical examiners stated that the DNA was approximately 376 billion times more likely to come from Chanel than any other unknown or unrelated person. The DNA found under the other nail is approximately 29 billion times more likely to come from Chanel than someone else. This would eventually lead the defense to file for a mistrial, claiming that the numbers given were too exaggerated to conclude and could have possibly indicated it was more than one perpetrator's. However, fingerprints found on Vetrano's cell phone was insufficient and couldn't be attributed to anyone in particular. Police would later arrest Chanel at his East New York residence late in the afternoon. As police expected, Chanel did not have a criminal record but received 3 tickets since 2013. Chanel was eventually taken into custody and questioned by 2 detectives along with the assistant district attorney, Peter McCormick. In the beginning of this interrogation, detectives begin with a straightforward approach, skipping report developments as well as obtaining background information and other minuscule details, not following any particular procedure but sticking to the facts of the matter. It's worth noting that Chanel denied ever wanting to speak to police, but eventually agreed after being left in solitude and the confinement of the interrogation room for hours on end.
Okay, we're present in the 107th Police Precinct. The date is Sunday, February 5th, 2017, and the time is about 10:33 a.m. My name is Peter McCormick. I'm an assistant DA in and for the County of Queens. Present in the room with me at this time are Detective Barry Brown, ADA Michael Curtis, video technician Joseph Deal, and Chanel Lewis. Okay, Chanel, I'm about to be reading you your rights. After that, if you agree to speak with me, you may, if you wish, make a statement about and answer questions about an incident that occurred on August 2nd, 2016. Even though I've already spoken to someone else, you do not have to talk to us. I'm going to now read you your rights.
Assistant District Attorney Peter McCormick now begins to Mirandize Chanel, and the interrogation commences with Chanel being asked about the specific day of August 2nd, 2016, the same day Karina lost her life.
All right. Chanel, why don't we start with, I think it was a Tuesday evening on August 2nd, 2016. Do you remember that date and that evening?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And where were you at that time?
I was in Springfield, at the Gateway and Spring Creek Mall.
Okay, by Gateway and Spring Creek Mall?
Spring Creek Park.
Park?
Yeah.
All right. Were you inside the park?
Yeah,
Okay. And was anyone with you, or were you by yourself?
by myself.
All right. About what time did you get to the park?
About 5 o'clock.
All right. And how did you enter the park? From what street?
From, where, Bell Parkway.
From where the Bell Parkway entrance is to the
Yeah.
park? All right. And what kind of park is this? What does it look like inside? Are the trees, grass, benches? What?
More like large grass.
High grass? Are there any trails in the park?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And were you on a trail or you in the grass?
On the trail.
Okay. What kind of trail is it? Paved or dirt or what?
It's kind of like has dirt.
Mm-hmm. Okay. About what time would you say you got to the park that night? That evening?
About 5.
Okay. What was the weather like? Was it rainy, cloudy, sunny?
Well, it looked like it rained like in the morning, and then it got sunny in the evening.
Okay. And while you were in the park, do you remember what you were wearing that day?
It was a hoodie, a sweatpants, and a shoes.
Okay. What color was the hoodie? Do you remember?
Most likely brown.
Mm-hmm. And the sweatpants?
I think it's probably black.
Right. And the shoes, were they shoes or sneakers?
I think sneakers.
Okay. Do you remember what color they were, what kind?
Mm.
Okay. Now, while you were in the park, did something happen?
Yes.
What happened while you were in the park?
While in the park, there was this girl jogging, and then one thing led to another because of some other situation.
All right. Well, the girl that was jogging, was she by herself or with anybody else?
By herself.
What did she look like? What was she wearing?
Well, I was going to say she looked like she was wearing a yellow tank top, maybe.
Okay. What kind of pants?
I wouldn't really know.
Were they long or short? Do you remember?
No.
Do you remember if they were long pants or short pants? No?
Mm.
Okay.
Chanel claims that the jogger was wearing a yellow tank top and couldn't remember what type of pants she was wearing. Video surveillance, however, would reveal that Karina had on a yellow tank top and short pants. This would be the first discrepancy in Chanel's confession, though this can be attributed to the crime taking place 6 months prior. Peter McCormick will now inquire into how the two initially crossed paths and what eventually led to his actions.
And was she jogging? Was she coming from the same direction that you came from when you entered the park?
No, we go opposite directions.
Okay. And when you first saw her, where were you? Were you in the grass or were you on the trail?
On the trail.
All right. And were you moving or were you standing still?
Like I was moving, listening to music,
You were walking or jogging?
walking.
Walking? And you were walking towards her?
I was walking towards, and then got side to side, and then one thing led to another.
When you first saw her, though, were you walking towards her or the same direction as her? When you first saw her?
We was walking towards each other.
Towards each other, okay. And she was jogging, you said?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do you know if she had anything on her head or in her hands, do you remember, as she was approaching you?
She might have had a phone.
Okay. And where was her phone? Was it in her hand or was it clipped to her clothes? Do you remember?
It was in her hand.
Okay. And you said as she got next to you, when she got next to you as she was running and you were walking, what happened then?
And then, because of a past situation, I got angry and then started hitting her and stuff like that.
Okay. Before you did, where did you hit her?
Like in the face and like in the mouth.
In the face and the mouth.
Mhm.
Before you hit her, did you grab her or did you just hit her right away?
I kind of grabbed her first.
Grabbed her? And how did you grab her? What part of her body did you grab?
Like I started hitting her because of the incident that was going on earlier.
Right, but did you grab her before you started hitting her, or was the first thing you did was to hit her? What was the first thing you did?
I grabbed her
Okay. And how did you grab her?
like this.
Okay. With both hands?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what part of her body did you grab? Do you remember her shoulders, her waist, her neck? Do you remember?
Probably like around here.
Okay, around the shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And when you grabbed her, what happened then?
And then I started hitting her and stuff like that.
All right. Now, did you hit her with both hands?
Probably, yeah.
All right. And what part of her body did you hit with your hands?
I didn't hit any part of her body.
Her face?
Just the face.
Just the face? All right. About how many times did you hit her in the face?
Around 5.
All right. Was she standing when you started to hit her, or was she on the ground?
She was on the ground.
Okay. So when did she fall to the ground? After you grabbed her? All right. Now, when she fell to the ground, was she lying in the path, or was she off the path? The pathway. When she fell to the ground and you were hitting her, was she on the pathway or was she off the pathway?
She's kind of on the pathway.
All right. About how wide is this path, would you say? Like,
About a couple of feet.
okay. So it's not that wide, right?
Mm.
All right. And when you were hitting her in the face, was she face up or face down?
She was like face up.
Face up. Did she say anything at all?
Mm.
No. Did she scream?
No, because her tooth broke.
I'm sorry? Her tooth broke? Right. Were you covering her mouth at all?
Mm.
No? Okay.
District Attorney Peter McCormick does a great job articulating himself in order to get a clear and concise answer from Chanel, going as far as repeating the same questions so nothing gets misconstrued. What's worth noting is that Chanel states that he attacked her due to a previous situation. When asked an entirely different question, Chanel again makes the same comment, which seems like he's been rehearsing the statements. When analyzing, Chanel displayed a gesture in the manner of which he grabbed Karina. This leaves many to insert their own speculations and assumptions, as many people believe that Chanel wouldn't have been capable of holding Karina down due to the physical differences in their physique. Chanel also states that Karina couldn't yell because her tooth had been broken during the altercation, which doesn't make sense, but it had been proven that Karina indeed had 2 chipped front teeth, and a specific detail that would be hard to know if Chanel wasn't there during the altercation. Peter McCormick will now inquire into the injuries that Karina sustained during that fateful day.
The tooth that broke, was it like in the front, the top, or the bottom? Do you remember?
No.
Okay. How long would you say you were hitting her for? About how long in time? I mean,
The whole thing was like about 5 minutes.
5 minutes, all right. And did you do anything else to her besides hit her? Did you put her hands on any other part of her body?
No.
Okay, around her neck or anything?
Yeah, there was kind of separation.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
You put her hands on her neck, around her neck? Okay. Do you remember, was it one hand or both hands?
Both.
Both? All right. And how long did you have your hands around her neck?
I don't know.
Okay. Did you squeeze her neck when you had your hands around her neck?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. You don't remember for how long though? Okay.
Because I was mad at the incident.
You were mad about an incident. Okay, we're going to get to that in a little bit, all right? I just want to find out what happened, all right? And was she still moving when you had your hands around her neck?
Oh, yeah, and then she dropped into the water.
Okay. Well, when you had your hands around the neck, was she on the ground or standing up?
She's still on the ground.
On the ground. Face up or face down?
Face up.
All right. And then how did her face go in the water?
I was strangling. We were near the water, and then I put her face in the ground.
Okay. You were
So
strangling
she
her,
fell
you
in the
said?
water.
And you
She-
put her...
No, she fell in the water,
Okay.
and then my hand was bleeding, so I went to wash off all the blood.
Okay. Which hand, do you remember? You just showed me your right hand, right? Your right hand? Where was it bleeding? What part of the hand? Your knuckle?
Mhm.
Okay. And when her face went in the water, was she face up or face down?
Down.
Down?
Face up.
A face up?
Yes.
All right. Was the water covering her face?
Mm-hmm.
And how long did you hold her under the water?
Actually, I didn't hold on to the water. When I came back, she was just...
Oh, you didn't hold her under the water? Okay. Was she moving when you put her face in the water?
She was not moving.
Okay. What do you remember?
Chanel claims that Karina had drowned face up in a pool of water. Yet medical examiner Dr. Margaret Pryl would come to a completely different conclusion. Dr. Pryl would state that after conducting the autopsy a day after Karina's murder, he stated Karina indeed succumbed to strangulation, blunt force trauma to her head, extensive abrasions on her buttock, scratch marks and bruises on her neck, as well as bursted blood vessels. No evidence proving that Karina drowned. District Attorney Peter McCormick will now try to elaborate and clarify further on Chanel's recollection of Karina drowning.
Was she still moving when you had your hands around her neck? At all?
Mm-hmm.
How was she moving? What was she doing?
Like, she wasn't really moving that much.
Okay. Did she try to hit you or touch your body at all during this time? Okay. What did she do?
Like, try to scratch me.
Okay. And did she scratch you? Where did she scratch you?
Like, on my face.
Okay. Would that be on the right side of your face?
Probably one of these two, though.
Okay. Did she leave a mark or a scratch on your face?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. So at some point before she went into the water, she had stopped moving. Is that right?
Mm?
She stopped moving before her face went into the water, correct? All right. Did
Kinda.
I'm sorry.
Kinda did.
Kinda did. All right. What could you tell if she was breathing or not?
What you say? Repeat the last question?
Could you tell if she was breathing?
No, the other one.
Oh, before that? I said,
Yeah.
at some point before she went into the water, she stopped moving, and you said kind of, right?
This is like after the water?
Well, that when you put her in the
Yeah.
water, was she still moving
Like,
then?
yeah, in the water. She fell in the
She
water.
fell. Was she moving then?
After that, she wasn't moving.
Okay.
Did she fall in the water when you first threw her to the ground, or when you're on the ground with her hitting her? Did she like kind of move towards the water?
It was more like a strangulation, and then she rolled into the water.
So it was after you had your hands on her neck that she went in the water.
Mhm.
All right. And what did you do then? After that?
After that, she was just lying there, and then I got her by her ankles, and then picked her up by from her back and put her in the bushes.
Okay. Can you just describe to me like how you moved her? What part of the body were you holding when you moved her?
Like on the hands. And
Okay,
lifting
on-
up her back.
Were your hands holding her arms, or were your hands under her arms, or
Like holding it.
your hands were holding one hand on each one of her hands?
Like how you just grab, like just somebody there.
You were dragging her by the hands or the arms, right?
Yeah.
And when you dragged her, was she facing down onto the ground or facing up to the sky?
Up to the sky.
Facing up, okay. And where did you drag her to?
It was somewhere off the pathway.
Off the pathway?
Mm-hmm.
What's on the side of the pathway? Bushes, trees, grass?
Like some really rough kind of trees. I mean, some really rough, it's called weed and leaves.
Weed and leaves, okay. About how high would you say it was? Was it high or
Like about 8 feet or something like that.
like higher than your head when you're standing?
Yeah.
All right.
In cross-reference with Chanel's recollection, here are photos of the park, as well as photos from the specific day and area Karina was found, where Chanel claims that the grass was 8 feet tall and taller than himself.
How far off the path would you say you dragged her into the grass? Like how many feet about?
Probably about 10.
Okay. After you dragged her in the grass, did you go back onto the path?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When you got back onto the path, could you see her from where you were, from the path?
Mm-hmm.
I think you said, Chanel, that she had a phone with her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what happened to her phone?
She must have lost it doing all that.
Did you ever grab her phone? Yeah?
I might have touched it.
Okay. If you touched it, do you know where? Did you put it somewhere or?
No.
No? Okay, do you remember when you touched it?
No, we're still in a scuffle.
Okay. All right.
Did you touch anything else that she might have had with her?
I wouldn't know.
When you left her in the grass, were her clothes still on?
No.
What was the status of her clothing? How was her clothing
Kind of
arranged?
like pulled off.
Pulled off?
Yeah.
Okay, what was pulled off?
Like her clothes,
Her shirt, her pants?
her pants.
What about her shirt?
Sure, I think it was still intact.
Still?
Maybe.
Okay. And when you say her pants were pulled off, were they totally off, or were they half on or half off? What were they?
Looked like kind of half off.
Okay. Were they down or up? I mean, her pants.
Kind of like down.
Okay. What about her underwear?
Maybe it was down too.
Okay. Did you touch her in any way in her vagina or her anus at all?
Mm-mm.
Not at all?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Chanel claims that he didn't sexually assault Karina after the murder, but Dr. Margaret Pryle would testify differently. Dr. Pryle would go on to state that Karina was found with her sports bra pulled down and her underpants and shorts rolled down her legs. Dr. Pryle also stated that Karina had lacerations on her genitalia and bruising inside and outside her anus, which indicated that a foreign object had been used and inserted. But Dr. Pryle would emphasize that she couldn't precisely give a specific time period in which that occurred. Peter McCormick will now inquire into Chanel's prior incident that drove him to do so.
Now, you said that you did this because you had some anger, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Can you tell me about that anger?
Cause I used to live in a different address than I currently live at now.
Right.
And then sometimes there's this man that comes around there. He play like live music and carry a lot of friends around there. I didn't like it because I feel unsafe and uncomfortable, and I like my place private and peaceful. And usually I just
Okay.
sometimes.
What place was this that you used to live in? A different place? What place was
It was the
this?
same neighborhood but different street. It was at Logan Street.
The neighborhood where you live now?
Yeah.
Okay, and where do you live now?
Where I live now is Essex Street.
What's the address? And is that a big house, little house? Or?
It's kind of like a 3-story.
Okay. What floor do you live on?
We live in the basement.
Okay. Who's we? Who do you live with?
My mom, my sisters,
How many sisters?
2.
2? Okay, what are their names? Okay. Are they older than you or younger than you?
Older.
Older, okay. How long, and the place you said you lived before that, you said it was Logan Street? And that's near Essex Street, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And there was someone there who got you angry? Do you remember who that was?
Mm.
Do you remember who that was?
Well, I wouldn't really want to say his name.
Okay.
Is your brother? Do you have any brothers?
Yeah, but he don't live with us no more.
Is he older or younger than you?
Older.
Where does he live now?
He lives somewhere in East Flatbush.
How old is he?
About 27, 28, around that area.
What's his name? Do you see him a lot?
Yeah, he comes around the house once.
Does he know this person that you have an issue with?
Yeah.
Did that particular person, you don't have to tell us who he is, but did he make you angry that day, on August 2nd, that Tuesday?
Yeah, because like every day he keep playing the music and inviting his friends, and no, we just live in a quiet block. And we
Mhm.
don't like all of these type of stuff.
Okay, and about what time was that?
Mm.
What time was that he was playing the music and got you annoyed and got
It's
you
pretty
angry?
much all day.
All right. Well, and what time, when did you leave your house to go to that park that day?
I probably left about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock.
In the afternoon, early afternoon?
Yeah.
And how far is your house to that, it's called Spring Creek Park, right? Is that what it's
Mhm.
called?
Yeah.
How far is your house from that park?
It's probably like a couple of blocks.
All right. And how did you get to the park?
Usually I just go to the industrial place and then go to the mall and then go across the bridge.
Okay. Did you walk? Did you ride a bike or?
Walk.
Okay. Was anybody with you?
Mm.
Did you tell anybody that you were going to the park before you went?
Mm-mm.
Okay. And you entered the park through what entrance way did you get into the park? What street is
Bell
that?
Parkway.
By the Bell Parkway entrance? All right. And how far into the park did you walk when you walked when you first saw the girl?
Like walked to one trail and then went to the next trail.
Okay. So how far would you say in distance you had walked when you ran into her?
What you mean?
Well, at some point while you were inside the park, you were listening to music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And were you listening to music through headphones or the radio, or how were you listening to music? What was
phone.
your phone?
Yeah.
All right. And at some point while you're walking, listening to music, you see the girl jogging towards you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, how far had you walked, like from the point you entered until you saw her coming? Halfway through, more than halfway through, or?
It's kind of like one trail and then you go to the next trail.
Okay, so you took one trail to the next trail. All right. And from the time you first grabbed the girl until the time you dragged her into the grass and left her there, about how long you think that took? You know, when you punched her and strangled her, how long would you say it lasted?
About 5 minutes.
Okay.
Strangulation can typically turn from simply being unconscious to fatal in anywhere from 30 seconds to 5 minutes. After Chanel describes the event that led to his actions, Peter McCormick will now inquire into his habits as well as his frequent visitations to Spring Creek Park, going as far as making him show the exact route he had taken to get there.
Now, had you ever gone to that park like before this date? Would you go there on occasion, or
Yeah, sometimes when I get angry and stuff like that.
how many times would you say you've been there before to that park?
Like several times.
More than 3, 4 times?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you always go into the park by that trail?
Yeah.
All right. And would you always walk, or there were other ways to get there?
I always walk.
Would you walk the same route?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I choose a different route.
Okay. Did you ever go there with someone else, with friends or anything?
No.
No? Okay. Did you ever, while you were in that area, did you ever once get spoken to by police in the area, like before this
I
happened?
mean, like I got stopped once by the police.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How long before this was that?
That was like probably a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm. A couple of months before the August 2nd?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I know, Chanel, I know that, like last night, you really didn't want to talk about this, right? Last night, but today it was okay. You wanted to talk about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that you told Detective Brown you wanted to straighten your life out, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then Detective Brown said to wait until you came in the room to talk about it. That's right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you did, right?
Yes.
Okay. I know that, I think Detective Brown showed you this map before when he spoke to you, right? Remember this map? Okay. Can you show me on the map, like what point, like that you actually entered into the park? This little dot there? Okay, thanks. And is that the same way you went out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when you went out, were you walking or running? Do you remember?
Walking.
Walking, okay. And where did you go after you left the park?
Pretty much my hand was really hurting me, so I went home.
Okay. Was it like bleeding heavily, or was it just like a scratch, or do you remember?
Like it was sweating a little bit, so
Sweating and bleeding?
and pain a little bit, so yeah.
Hurting? Right. And you said you had some scratches on your face, right? All right. Where did you go after you left the park? Did you go out somewhere? Did you go home?
Went home.
Okay. Was anyone home when you got there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I got my own keys, so I just.
Right. Did anyone see you that evening?
Yeah, some people, they were asleep.
Hmm?
They were kind of, yeah, they see me.
Okay. Did they ask you what happened to your face? Did they notice they had a scratch on your face? Anybody?
Not really, but they noticed this, like,
What did you say about that?
I said I fell.
Okay. Did you say where?
Mm-hmm.
What did you say?
I said Gateway Mall Park.
Okay.
It's important to note that Chanel Lewis went to the hospital the very next day in order to get his hand checked out. Sunny Downstate Hospital medical records showed that Chanel received treatment for his hand injury, but the same records dispute any assertion that Karina ever scratched Chanel on his face. which leaves many to come to their own conclusion on how Chanel's skin cells ended up under Karina's fingernail. The district attorney office has since refused to release Chanel's medical records, and Judge Aloise would allow the motion. Peter McCormick will now revisit Chanel's actions, along with injuries he or Karina might have acquired.
Can you just tell us what this girl looked like? Was she a black girl, Chinese girl, Spanish girl, white girl? Do you remember?
She looked white.
Okay. About how big was she?
About 5'4", 5'3", I guess.
Heavy, slim, medium?
Kind of look medium.
Okay.
Had you ever seen her before?
No.
Did you ever go back to that same park, Spring Creek Park, after August 2nd, after this date?
Mm-mm.
Never? Okay.
Chanel, after her face is in the water and you pick her up and you drag her into the weeds, does she move at all at that point or make any more noises?
Mm-mm.
No? At what point did she stop moving and making any sounds?
Just when she was under the water.
Under the water?
Mm-hmm.
Like as she was under the water or right before you put her in?
As she was under the water.
Were you holding her under the water?
At that point, no. I was too busy cleaning off the blood from my hand.
Okay. Was she still moving while you were strangling her around the neck?
She was moving like quite a little bit, yeah.
Is that when she scratched your face?
No, it was when I was hitting.
When you were hitting her, she scratched your face?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
When you were hitting her, were you standing over her or were you like sitting on her chest or how were you positioned when you were hitting her?
Like I was on top.
But were you standing on top, or were your knees on the ground? Were you were you low, or were you standing up on your feet?
Like it was kind of like between, like in the middle. Between the middle of standing and crouching on the floor.
Crouching like a catcher in baseball, or with your knees on the ground?
It was more like a one with a baseball.
Like a catcher in baseball? Did you ever hit it with anything, or did you hit it with your hands?
Just the hands.
Okay. Oh, and all the punches were to her face, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you said it was with both your hands?
Mm-hmm.
You only got the injury to the one hand?
Mm-hmm.
Would you say you use that hand more?
Yeah, it's more like it on that hand, yeah.
Or you're righty?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Did you notice whether she suffered any injuries as a result of the punches?
Just a broken tooth.
That's it? Do you remember, could you see if she was bleeding or not, or black,
Not really
swollen?
checked.
You didn't check? Okay.
Did she say anything to you? Was she able to, other than maybe if she screamed, was she able to communicate at all? Say any words, any sentences?
Mm-hmm.
Did you say anything to her while it's happening?
Mm-hmm.
And you were angry because of what happened in your neighborhood?
Yes.
Were you angry about what happened in Howard Beach?
No.
Did you have any friends or people you knew who lived in the neighborhood by Howard Beach?
No.
No?
No, I'm good.
Okay, the time
He
is...
was talking about-
I'm sorry.
I was talking about something about what you was talking about with him. Rest of what?
What?
Oh, what's that called again? Rest of what? You said it.
I said, did you have any friends in the area? You said no, right?
No, respiratory.
The interrogation is cut abruptly, but overall concludes with Chanel confessing to murdering 30-year-old Karina Vetrano. Some would claim the confession was entirely coerced, with deprivation tactics used by the NYPD, with references to Central Park 5 and 7, a case that contains numerous false confessions. Others believe Chanel indeed murdered Karina that fateful day, as DNA does not lie. After a lengthy trial, the jury would come to a unanimous decision, and Chanel was found guilty of first-degree murder, 2 counts of second-degree murder, and aggravated sexual abuse, which resulted in a life sentence without the possibility of parole.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty.
First and foremost, these are all our friends. These are all our neighbors. These are all our supporters. They've been here since the beginning. And I want to thank them all for being here. Secondly, all this was to us was that our baby was killed and murdered. And all we wanted to do was find the killer. We found him in 6 months. There's no question, no doubt. We never wanted to make a race thing out of this, ever. And to us, it still isn't. But the defense chose to put us through this torture, this pain, this 2 years. They could have made it easier on us and on him if they would have took a plea. But they needed their 15 minutes. They needed their time in the limelight. They made a circus out of this. We never intended that to be. Never intended this become a circus. But it has, and it's still bewildering to me that something like that did happen. But today, everybody got justice. Karina got justice, and the murderer got his justice. So, I just want to thank all my supporters, the DA's office, the police, the court officers, and everybody that's been behind us and stood behind us this entire time. Thank you.
What did you make of Chanel saying that he's sorry for your loss, but it wasn't me?
I don't even think he said he's sorry for my loss.
He didn't say he was sorry.
He didn't say he's sorry at all. He said he was innocent, okay? He's still professing his innocence. When I said this in the beginning, there's only 3 types of people that think he didn't do it. First category, those with diminished mental capacities. 2, those who are out for their own political gain, their 15 minutes of fame. Some in category 2 fit into category 1. And the third were those who are in complete denial. And the third category takes care of all 3. And he's not in complete denial. He knows he did it, but he's still not man enough to admit that he did it. Thank you. Thank you.
Can you talk at all?
It's my baby girl. And I know most of the things I said are going to be cut out, but I'd like for one of you guys to print or play the whole thing somewhere so the people can see. Believe it. See you later.
On behalf of 100 blacks in law enforcement and on behalf of the Lewis family, 100 blacks take the position that from the outset, this investigation was skewed. The reason you need to know that it was skewed and off balance from the outset is because this all started from the machinations of Lieutenant Russo.
That's right.
We wouldn't even be here today. Nobody in the Lewis family would be here today if it wasn't for Lieutenant Russo, who made up a scenario, who admits that he took 45 minutes on his off day following a black man for absolutely no reason.
And how would be?
He claims that this black man was suspicious. Why was he suspicious? Because he had on a hoodie in warm weather like this. Imagine that. That's why he followed him day one.
That's right.
If that wasn't enough, day two, Lieutenant Russo is off again, off duty, supposed to be enjoying life with his family and friends. What does he do on his second day off duty? He spots Chanel Lewis a second time and follows him again. Instead of 45 minutes this time, not only does he follow him for that length, but then 2 cops on him. Get 2 cops to get his name and get his address for no apparent reason, violating his constitutional rights, even though legally a police officer can ask you for your name and address. But they patted him down for nothing.
That's right.
The pat down was totally unnecessary, and it wasn't documented.
That's right.
So they took his name, put him in a file, which is illegal.
Right.
You're not supposed to be put in a database when you're not in the commission of a crime.
Yes,
so they put him into the database. So now, what do? They go 8 months without a suspect because the 2 suspects that they could have had were white, and they didn't want to arrest a white person.
Talk about it.
That's what we should be talking about. Why did they disregard the evidence that they had? Now, facts change, but any investigator tell you that the evidence never changes. Just facts. And facts are just machinations of what that prosecutor said about he beat her up, he choked her out, she came to again, he beat her up again, strangled her again. All these are machinations of a white supremacist imagination. All of it, not some of it, all of it. So Lieutenant Russo says, what was that person going back 8 months ago who I deemed suspicious? And that's when they picked him up. That's when they went to his house and swabbed him. They swabbed 550 or more black men.
Right.
They didn't give that information to the defense.
That's right.
So you violating the 6th Amendment. Not only that, there should have been a Brady hearing.
That's right.
Why wasn't there a Brady hearing? Let's be clear.
Right.
Once you have additional information and evidence, especially coming from a police officer
Right.
who just felt things were so wrong that he wanted to make it right.
Right.
So he gave them information that they didn't have initially. Gave them in that DNA from European hair, not no black man's hair. European hair was found on her body.
That's right.
It was the police department that made the decision that we're not going after anybody white. This was a decision made not based on science. It was based on white supremacy. Said the victim's gotta be a black man. So what did they do? They swabbed black men. And they looked for, they invented all these machinations based on one man, and his high-ups went along with it, that it's gotta be a black person. Why is this so historically accurate? It's historically accurate because this is the way it's always done. The DNA was supposed to be the science that will convict somebody. They threw it out. You think they used it. They didn't use it. They dismissed science. What did they go with? They went with a confession. Well, let me tell you something about the history of black confessions. A black man in Boston confessed in a 68-page document, his name was Stewart, that he killed a white woman. Her husband killed her, and the brother-in-law gave him the weapon. He signed a 68-page document in Boston saying you don't want to be a black man killing a white woman in Boston. Trust me, I went to school there. And yet, he signed that document based on the level of torture and deprivation that he had to go through. Look at the Central Park 7, not 5, 7. Look at the Central Park 7. Look at the confessions that they got from these young men. All of them were innocent. right here in New York, same detectives did the same thing. They went crazy just on the rumor that a black man might have did something to a white woman. They got towns, they got massacres. We can go through massacres where thousands of black men were killed in different localities, not only in the Confederacy, in the Midwest also, in New York and Philadelphia, New Jersey, other places where there were massacres, based on just a rumor that a white woman was touched, or she was bumped in an elevator, or she was whistled at in Emmett Till's case.
That's right.
And white men went crazy and went after every black man in existence. So why am I saying this? To let you know that confessions not worth the paper that is written on when it involves the black people and the investigators are white. You can throw confessions out. They happen every day. Every day, not once in a while, every day. So some of you are writing and reporting, well, he said he did it. Did he? Did you check the missing hours that he wasn't in that investigation room? Did you check those hours? What was said? What was he deprived of? Did he want to speak to his mother? Did he want to eat? Did he want to see his family? Did he want to make a phone call? Well, what was happening during that time? I'm just telling you, if you look at all the evidence, you will see that they should have swabbed 550 white men. That's what the science dictates, not us. We don't have nothing to do with it. 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement is a pro-law enforcement organization. We want to see the guilty prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Unfortunately, in this case, the guilty person is not being prosecuted. They should have went where the science led them, which would have been to white individuals. They didn't do that. They made a clear decision. Whoever we arrest, whoever we prosecute is going to be a black man. And that's how they did it. And that's the position of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement. And I'm saying this on behalf of a family that's God-fearing. Not one of them, all of them. God-fearing, love the Lord, called according to his purpose, serve the Lord, obeys his will. All of them, not some of them, all of them. God-fearing. I don't care what you say about Chanel with respect to the report about him being dim-witted or mentally challenged in any way. He loved the Lord like the rest of his family.
That's right.
Called according to that purpose. So I'm saying that, don't go by something saying he was mad or upset. If he was mad or upset, he would have did something long before he got to that so-called murder site. If you that upset, you don't wait and walk an hour and then get there, then do something. You do it right when you upset. FBI reports say black men can only stay mad but so long. How could he stay mad that long and then go all the way as far as he walked away and then walked away? No, no good. So I'm just saying that to say the science was not there. There was no real, true investigation, and they didn't go where it would have led them, because it would have led them to white individuals. They refused that. Consequently, Chanel Lewis was the one who was targeted. He was a target, they were successful in the target, and that's why you're here now, because you think this was justice. This was not justice. This was clearly, historically, what we always receive, injustice at the hands of people who look prominent, who robe themselves in prominence, but yet they have an agenda, and their agenda was to lock up a black man.
At this time, we will have the mother of Chanel Lewis speak. Do not ask her questions. We will take all the questions, but she will speak for her child very, very briefly. Stand right there.
Right there.
Stand there.
One step down.
Step down.
One step down.
Yeah. There you go.
First, I want to give my God the glory. Because to God be the glory, great things that he have done. And I still believe in God. And today, the judge, Aloise, sentenced my son. But I want to say to the judge, Aloise, he sent an innocent man to prison. But you know what? He have a God to talk to.
That's right.
He stand with the prosecution, and what they did to my son there as a mother sitting down there, it is unbearable.
That's right.
My son did not, first, let me say, give condolence to the family again, because I'm a mother, and it grieved my heart when the mother talked today. My heart was broken, because I feel the mother pain, but also my son. My son, I don't know if I will see my son again. Neither the mother will see her daughter. But as a mother, I still believe, and I know that Chanel, my son, is innocent. Chanel did not kill this lady. The judge tried to sentence him without compassion. But I know that even though he said I'm sending him to a dark place, he already in a dark place. And he told the judge Michael Alois, I wish he was here to hear me, he's already sentenced himself, because what he did today was not justice for Chanel.
That's right.
And when they're talking about God, they don't know who God is. Because if they know what God is, they would never done this to my son. Everything that was in the courthouse, it was framed by Brett Levington and Donald Sanders. Now tell me, the police come to my house, which they said inside behind my back, because I didn't allowed to testify. They come there and they take my son DNA without even me seeing what they did. They come there with another female police. I don't want to call her name. I could. The police distract me, take me about 20 feet from where the officer was, courting Chanel, telling Chanel what to say, and take my son DNA. No, what they did, they planted Chanel DNA on that girl. If my son strangled this young lady, let I put down my back. I have some demonstration here to do. If my son strangled that young lady, we strangle her like this, that's what the DA said. How come the DNA only had the back of this young lady dead back? Huh? Which to tell the world that the world know, because God himself know that my son did not kill this young lady. But what they did, it's all make up things with the prosecution, the judge, the police, and they put it on my son Chanel. But you know what? God is going to vindicate my son, because it's not over. God said it's not over. And all I see today inside the courtroom is the devil work. The devil, all I see there was the devil. The Bible said we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but we wrestle with principality and wickedness in high places and power of darkness. And that's what I see there today. But you know what? I'm more than a conqueror through Jesus Christ. Because you know what keep me? God.
Yes, sir. That's right.
God keep me. I am not going to bash the family. No, I would not. Although they bash my son, I would not bash them. Because they have a right to say what they have to say, because they lost a daughter. But I'm here to represent my son, and I will keep fighting for Chanel. In the name of Jesus, I will keep on fighting, and I will fight until the last breath leave my body.
That's right. Justice for Chanel! Justice for Chanel! Justice for Chanel!